Welcome back to Rank and File Sports, where we are grading every single NFL draft class based on three categories. First of all, we're going to grade based off of whether or not the team drafted the players that fit their needs for next season, as well as the overall talent that they got, just assessing the draft class as a whole. And then finally, the value. Is each player worth where they were drafted at? Were they a steal at that position, or did the team maybe reach a little bit and not get as good a value as they could have if they had traded the pick? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and give them an overall grade. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video.
The Dallas Cowboys going into the draft had the needs of an offensive guard, an edge rusher, a cornerback, a running back, and a wide receiver. And in the first round, they reached pretty far, but did address a critical need in getting Tyler Booker, who was the number two offensive guard in the draft and is expected to be a starter for this Cowboys team. But Jonah, this was a big reach for the Cowboys.
Yeah, some mocks he was going, early second round, maybe late first, but I think that, while it does address a team need, and I don't think it was necessarily a bad pick, but I think they could have traded back and still ended up getting Tyler Booker, which is why we are going to classify it as a reach. But their second pick, they got some pretty good value in Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College. He was a projected late first rounder, got him almost halfway through the second, and that addresses yet another need in defensive end. So I think that kind of makes up for the reach on Tyler Booker a little bit, getting a steal there in Ezaraku. So overall, kind of balances out there in the first two rounds.
Yeah, and if that didn't balance it out, then getting an absolute steal in the third round with Siobhan Rebel Jr. from East Carolina definitely does it. Um, he was overall, he was overall 31 in this draft. So not necessarily going in the first round, but when we saw Will Johnson starting to fall, I thought Siobhan Revel was easily going to go ahead of him. And Will Johnson still got picked, I think, before Revel did, but they're the same size, same build. I think he's going to be an absolute stud in this Dallas defense, and they got incredible value for where they got him.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That Revel pick was absolutely incredible. Next, they don't have another pick until the fifth round. They had two that were four apart. They went ahead and got Jaden Blue out of Texas and Shamar James from Florida. Neither one of these really crazy value or crazy reaches. I think they're both pretty good value for where they got them at. Jaden Blue addresses the running back need. So that's four needs met in the first four picks, which is great for their needs grade. Talent-wise, also very solid. And the overall value, nothing terrible so far.
Then in the sixth round, they took a Johnny Cornelius, an offensive tackle from Oregon. Not really addressing a need, but I can't say I blame them in drafting an offensive lineman. It's always good to build the trenches and protect your quarterback, whoever it's going to be in the future, if it's still going to be Dak or if they're going to end up moving on. But especially with Dak's injury history, I can't say I blame them in drafting an offensive lineman. I don't really feel too strongly either way about this pick.
Starting off the seventh round, they got Jay Toya, defensive tackle, again addressing not necessarily a need, but bolstering depth on the defensive line, definitely something that the Cowboys could use. So this was a pretty good pick overall, and not bad value to get this guy in the seventh round. Then they went Phil Maffa to get a second running back. Really got, the receiving back and the bruiser back. So definitely addressing the running back need. They'll be able to rotate depending on the situational value for each player. So I think this was honestly a pretty smart pick. And again, pretty good value to get Maffa here in the mid seventh round.
And then with their final pick of the draft, they did take another defensive tackle. This time it was Tommy Aking Bisote. I'm sorry if I botched that, but um, this was a little bit of a reach. wasn't very highly ranked, and I doubt he was expecting to get a call saying he was getting drafted. But with a lot of these teams, we don't know all the reasoning behind why they're getting drafted. So they had to have liked this guy for some reason. Didn't really address a big need, but like you said, for Jay Toya, it's always good to bolster the defensive line and make sure you have a couple guys that can step in. But overall, just kind of like a end of round pick.
Yeah, so addressing the four of their five needs with the first four picks definitely helps out this need grade. We're going to give it a B plus. They didn't end up drafting a wide receiver at all. It wasn't necessarily a huge need, but I would have liked to see them use, one of those fifth round or later picks to just get somebody else in there into that room. So we are going to give them a B plus for needs. Talent wise, a B plus again. We were between B plus and A minus because those top three picks are all absolute studs. After that, there's a few good guys in there, but most of these players are just going to be depth pieces in the end. So nobody really stood out as a super great player, in rounds 5 to 7. Value wise, again, it's going to be a B plus. Like we said early, a little bit of a reach on Tyler Booker. Azaraku and Revel made up for that. Everybody else was pretty good value for where they were selected at. So we gave him a B plus for value. So if you could do the math, this is going to average out to a B plus overall grade.
Yeah, I think overall the Cowboys nailed this draft class. I think addressing so many of those needs, even if it was at the expense of reaching a little bit, I think it's going to come up huge for them. The running back picks, I think, are going to be great considering that their current running backs are not really proven guys in Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, and also could be out the door in a couple of years. So I think at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing I would really change about this Cowboys draft class. I mean, if you wanted to trade back to get some value and still be able to get Tyler Booker, I wouldn't blame you. But if you really liked him, I don't blame you going out and making sure you get him early on.
Yeah, overall, very solid class from the Cowboys. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.